I was 46 years old, and for most of my life, I genuinely thought I had everything sorted out. I'd built a plumbing business from scratch, owned my house free and clear. No debts, no ties. I truly believed stability was the great reward for all those years of sacrificing everything. Then, one perfect spring afternoon, everything shifted, and it happened at a simple neighborhood cookout. I was just standing near the grill, nursing a beer, when my neighbor introduced me to someone new. She had tired, but gentle, eyes, and looked to be in her late 20s. Right there, clinging tightly to her mother's jeans like the outside world was just too much, was a little girl, no older than 6. "This is my daughter," the mom said, her voice so soft. The little girl peeked up at me with enormous brown eyes. Her hair was tangled, and she looked terrified, as if even looking at a stranger was dangerous. Later, my neighbor leaned in and whispered her story. Single mom, working part-time at the local diner, doing her absolute best just to survive. The father? Gone ages ago. Every now and then, a measly $50 check might show up when a wave of guilt hit him, but really, he was a ghost. I watched them all afternoon. The girl stayed glued to her mother, whispering questions and always getting the most patient answers back. When someone offered her a burger, she didn't just grab it. She looked at her mom first, silently asking permission just to accept the food. That moment shattered something inside me. I had never married, never had kids. I'd spent my 20s and 30s obsessively building my business, convinced that success would plug every emotional gap in my heart. But watching that woman juggle life, still trying to make her daughter laugh, while clearly counting every single dollar, it brought something deep within me roaring to life. When they were getting ready to leave, the little girl dropped her juice box. I knelt down, picked it up, and handed it back. For just a split second, her big eyes met mine. "Thank you," she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't catch it. "You're welcome, sweetheart," I replied, feeling a strange lump in my throat. Her mother gave me a look I couldn't place. Grateful, surprised, maybe a little bit of both. That one moment just stuck with me. In the weeks that followed, I found myself casually asking my neighbor about them. Not obvious questions, just casual mentions. I learned they lived across town in a tiny, cramped apartment. The mother worked double shifts whenever possible. The little girl was brilliant, already devouring chapter books and asking questions that could stump any adult. But she was painfully shy, used to moving around, never having the security of knowing if next month's rent was paid. I couldn't stop thinking about them. That little girl who asked permission just to eat and who whispered, "Thank you," like words cost money. And her mother, who carried the weight of the world, yet still found the time to crouch down and answer every single question. 3 weeks later, I bumped into them again, this time at the grocery store. The daughter was meticulously counting the items in the cart, doing math in her head to stay within a strict budget. When they saw me, she hid a little, but not as quickly as before. "How are you two doing?" I asked. Her mother offered a polite smile. "We're fine," she said. But the exhaustion etched into her shoulders told a completely different story. That night, lying awake in my bed, I realized exactly what I wanted. I wanted to be part of their lives. Not in a rash way, but carefully, step by slow step. So, I started gently. Coffee dates with her while the girl was at school. Occasional family dinners where I quickly learned the delicate art of talking to a shy 7-year-old. I took my time. This was never about chasing romance. This was about earning trust in a world where trust had been brutally broken too many times. Then the phone call came that changed everything. I was under a kitchen sink, wrestling with a stubborn pipe, when my phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Normally, I'd just ignore it, but something pushed me to answer. "Is this him?" the voice asked. It was a school nurse. "We have your daughter in the nurse's office." I froze solid. "My daughter? You're listed as her emergency contact." She fell at recess. We couldn't reach her mother. Somehow, the woman I was seeing had silently put my name down as the person to call when her little girl needed help, the person she truly trusted. I dropped my tools and drove straight to the school. My heart hammered the entire way. What if it was serious? What if I wasn't fast enough? When I finally walked into the nurse's office, I saw her sitting on the exam table, tears streaming down her face, a scraped knee, and palms covered in dirt. My heart just broke. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling right beside her. "I heard you had a little fall." She nodded, trying desperately to be brave. "This might sting a little," I warned, helping the nurse clean her cut. She squeezed my hand incredibly tightly, but never made a sound. And then, it happened. She looked up at me with those huge, wet eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Daddy." Not "Thank you, Mike." Not "Thank you, Mom's friend." She called me Daddy. The word hit me like a physical wave. The nurse was professional enough to pretend she didn't notice the tears suddenly blurring my vision. I swallowed hard, managing to choke out, "You're welcome, sweetheart. Daddy's here." 20 minutes later, her mother rushed in, pure panic on her face. She found us sitting together, her daughter holding my hand and telling me how I made the pain go away. "She called you Daddy?" her mom asked quietly. "She did," I admitted, my voice thick. "How does that make you feel?" I looked down at the little girl who had just given me the most precious word she owned. like the luckiest man alive. That night, after the girl was tucked safely into bed with ice cream and cartoons, her mother and I talked for hours. She confessed her daughter had never called anyone that before. The biological father had left when Emma was just 2. She honestly didn't even remember him. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised her. "If you both want me, I want to be her dad for real." The very next morning at breakfast, the little girl climbed into my lap and asked, "Will you teach me how to fix things like you do?" That was the moment I knew for sure. This wasn't just about dating her mother anymore. This was about actually building a family. We got married soon after her 8th birthday. She insisted on being both the ring bearer and the flower girl. The judge smiled right at her during the vows and even asked, "Do you take this man to be your new, real daddy?" "I do," she shouted proudly. There wasn't a single dry eye in the entire courthouse. From that day on, our traditions began. Saturday mornings were spent in the garage, working on projects together. Thursday nights were always pancake night. Sunday evenings meant movies where she always fell asleep nestled between us. She introduced me everywhere as my dad. And every single time she said it, I felt like my heart might actually burst with joy. That was the start, the very happiest beginning I could have ever imagined. Life as a family quickly settled into a beautiful, steady rhythm that I never knew I wanted. Everywhere we went, Emma proudly introduced me as dad. Not stepdad, not mom's husband, just dad. Saturday mornings were our sacred time. In the garage, I taught her how to correctly hold a hammer, how to measure wood, how to tighten a bolt. She soaked up every piece of knowledge like a sponge. "Why do the pipes make that noise?" she'd ask. And I'd kneel down and show her, taking everything apart piece by piece. We built a tree house in the backyard that took 3 months because she insisted on helping with every single nail. When we painted her bedroom, she chose colors so bright they made Lena just shake her head and laugh. But they were perfect for an 8-year-old girl. Thursday nights reliably turned into pancake nights. Sunday evenings were always for movies where she, without fail, fell asleep between us on the couch, popcorn scattered everywhere. I'd carry her up to bed while Lena cleaned up the mess. And every single time, my heart swelled with deep gratitude. Those tiny traditions were what made our house feel truly alive. I started saving for her future, too. At first, it was just $50 a month. Nothing huge, but my plumbing business was growing fast. And as it grew, so did the college fund. By the time she was 10, we had enough stashed away to cover tuition at a state school. I didn't just save money. I provided everything she needed. School clothes, backpacks, shoes, electronics. When she needed glasses in 4th grade, I was right there at the appointment, letting her pick out the frame she loved, even though they cost double what I'd planned. The sheer sparkle in her eyes made it worth every single penny. Her health insurance came through my business. Dentist visits, checkups, even that terrifying emergency room trip when she broke her wrist skateboarding. I covered it all, instantly. I never once hesitated. She was my daughter. That's simply what fathers do. When she wanted piano lessons, I bought a decent keyboard and paid 6 months in advance. When she suddenly got into painting, I converted half the garage into a little studio so she could create without ever worrying about making a mess. When all her friends got cell phones, I bought her one, too. Not because she needed it, but because I absolutely didn't want her to feel left out. Some friends told me I was spoiling her rotten, but I didn't see it that way at all. This was the little girl who once whispered, "Thank you for a juice box." The girl who first called me daddy in a school nurse's office. I needed her to know that she was profoundly loved, fiercely wanted, and deeply valued. And she absolutely thrived. Her report cards were flawless. Teachers constantly praised her curiosity and incredible work ethic. She devoured books the way other kids devoured candy. She'd explain the complex plots of novels with more insight than many adults I knew. Lena and I would sit together at night looking at the rapidly growing college fund and just smile. By age 11, Emma's fund was already nearing $30,000. At the rate I was saving, she could graduate high school with the ability to attend any state school debt-free. "This will give her freedom," I told Lena. "She'll be able to chase her dreams without being chained to student loans." "You're amazing," Lena would reply. "She's so lucky to have you." But honestly, I felt like I was the luckier one. Emma had turned me into a father. She gave me purpose that went far beyond business and bills. She brought meaning to my life in a way I never expected or planned. Every single time she called me dad at school events or introduced me to her friends with obvious pride, I felt like the richest man on earth. Even the small things touched me deeply. If I had to work late, she would carefully save part of her dessert for me. When I caught the flu, she made me get well cards every day until I recovered. One year, her class had a Bring Your Dad to Work day. She stood up proudly and told everyone I was the best plumber in the state. At night, Lena and I would lie in bed, listening to Emma singing softly in her room. Lena would smile and whisper, "She absolutely adores you." And I'd answer, "The feeling is mutual." She truly didn't even remember her biological father anymore. To her, I was dad in every way that truly mattered. That sense of belonging, of truly being a family, filled me completely with joy. Looking back now, I realize those were the golden years, pure, simple, and absolutely perfect in their own way. I had a wife who loved me, a daughter who thought I hung the moon, a home that was full of laughter, projects, and pancake nights. At the time, I foolishly thought it would last forever. I should have known better, because nothing ever stays the same. Those golden years were about to crash to an end, and I was about to learn that love can change faster than you could ever expect. The silence in the house was deafening. You could hear a pin drop. I was sitting in my favorite chair, listening intently to the clock ticking away the seconds. It felt like the hands were moving agonizingly slower than usual, deliberately stretching out the minutes. Each tick was a tiny hammer blow, relentlessly driving a wedge between Lena and me. Where there used to be such easy laughter and the warmth of family, now there was only hollow silence. A few days earlier, Lena and I had a vicious conversation about my relationship with Emma, or rather, her brutal perception of it. She had hurled accusations and harsh words at me, calling me insensitive and unfeeling. And while her words cut deep, they unexpectedly woke something up inside me, a realization that had been buried under the chaos of everyday life. Now, sinking deeper into my chair, a single question hammered in my mind. Was I truly nothing to Lena and Emma? Suddenly, the door opened and Lena stepped in. She looked so tired and so incredibly troubled. The sight of her, though, still brought an instant, genuine smile to my face. Despite everything that had happened, my love for her hadn't faded at all. On the contrary, it had grown stronger and more determined. Lena, I began, keeping my voice soft. Can we talk? I could see the weariness in her eyes, but also a flicker of desperately needed hope. She nodded silently and sank down next to me. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't awful. It was filled with a shared history, with memories that felt as vivid as the day they occurred. After a long while, I spoke again. Lena, we desperately need to find a way to move forward. For us, for this house. We just can't let this distance grow any further. She looked at me, her eyes brimming with sadness. Mark, I'm so sorry. I know I haven't been easy to live with lately. Emma and I have been through so much, and I guess I've just been too hard on you. No, Lena, please don't apologize. I should have seen this coming. I should have talked to you much earlier. I'm sorry too. She gently placed her hand on mine, and a warm wave of tenderness washed over me. Her touch was like a balm, instantly soothing the wounds that had been festering inside my soul. Then I added, but the most important thing right now is Emma. I want her to be happy, to be proud of us, to be proud of her family. Lena squeezed my hand. And what do you think would make her happiest right now? I paused, thinking deeply. For us to be happy ourselves. For us to be a real family. Lena leaned against my shoulder, and a single tear escaped her eye. Sometimes I feel like I'm betraying her, Mark. Like I'm doing something wrong. No, Lena, you're not. You're an incredible mother, but even the very best parents sometimes need help. Someone to lean on. And that someone is me. Thank you, Mark. You're right. We are a team. We need to talk more, both of us, and not just about Emma. About us, about our feelings, about everything. I hugged her tightly. You're absolutely right, Lena. You are my wife. You are my best friend, and you are the love of my life. And together, we are a family. Nothing can change that. As we held each other close, I felt this intense surge of gratitude for the moment, for the chance to heal the terrible rifts that had crept into our lives. The path ahead might still hold challenges, but now we would face them together, united by our deep love and our commitment to each other and to Emma. Later that evening, after the heartfelt conversation with Lena, I decided to take a long walk in the park near our house. As I strolled along the winding paths, the cool night air calming my frantic thoughts, I realized something absolutely crucial. It was time to stop seeing myself as merely a stepdad and start fully embracing the role I truly had in Emma's life. Her real dad. This wasn't about changing her past or denying the biological father's role. It was about accepting the present reality and creating a future where I was an integral, permanent part of her story. Over the past 8 years, I had loved and cared for her as if she were biologically my own. And now I needed to show her, to prove to her that I was her dad in every sense of the word. As I continued my walk, a relieved smile spread across my face. A new determination filled my heart. I was going to show Emma, show Lena, and show myself that I was more than just a stepfather. I was her dad. The following week, I dedicated a huge amount of time to Emma. We worked on projects out in the garage, played video games together until late, and watched movies comfortably at home. I made sure to intentionally include her in every conversation, asking for her opinion and showing genuine, focused interest in what she had to say. At first, she was reserved and standoffish, but gradually a tentative smile returned to her lips, and genuine laughter echoed through the house once again. One Saturday morning, while we were fixing up an old car in the garage, I decided to talk to Emma about how I felt, about how I had always been there for her. I chose my words with agonizing care, desperately not wanting to hurt or pressure her. Emma, do you remember when you were little and we used to work on projects out here? Yeah, she replied, a hint of that sweet smile touching her lips. You taught me how to fix a carburetor and how to change a tire. Exactly. And I remember how incredibly proud you were when you learned those things. You felt capable, empowered. She nodded, her smile widening a little more. I did feel that way. And you were always there to help me, to guide me. That's perfectly true. But I want you to know that I've been there for you in so many other moments, too. Your birthdays, your school plays, your soccer games. I've been at almost all of them. I know. But what, Emma? Why do you think I've done all those things? I took a deep breath. Because I love you. I love you like a daughter. And that's why I want to ask you to call me Dad. Not because I want you to forget about your real father. He will always be your real dad. But because our relationship is real. The love we share is real. And I truly believe that a name should reflect the truth. The truth of who I am to you and the truth of how I feel about you. As I finished speaking, the garage seemed to fall completely silent. All the sounds of the tools lying dormant, as if they were holding their breath. Finally, Emma looked straight at me, her eyes shining brightly with fresh tears. But, she whispered, her voice fragile. There's nothing left to say, but I replied softly, fully understanding the immense weight of her hesitation. If you don't want to call me Dad, it's completely all right. I won't ever force you, but I hope that someday you can find it in your heart to do so. After a long moment, she stood up, walked over to me, and wrapped her arms around my neck. Thank you, Dad, she whispered. In that instant, my heart swelled uncontrollably with emotion. Years of dedication, unconditional love, and endless patience had finally borne the most precious fruit. And as I held her close, I knew that our relationship had reached a new level of connection and depth. That afternoon, while we were eating pizza in comfortable silence, Lena and I kept stealing glances at each other, a silent, profound understanding passing between us. The tension that had been gripping our lives had finally eased, replaced by a cautious, fragile optimism. We were taking small, deliberate steps toward healing, and that was more than enough to fill me with renewed hope. Days bled into weeks, and with each passing day, I felt a powerful sense of renewal washing over our family. Emma called me Dad more often now. Sometimes it was hesitant, but always deeply sincere. The bond between us was growing stronger than ever, and I cherished every single moment of it. Lena and I also began talking far more openly. We discussed our deepest feelings, our needs, and our dreams, and slowly but surely the walls that had risen between us crumbled to dust. Our love, which had endured so much, began to flourish all over again. One evening, as we sat peacefully on the porch swing, watching a gorgeous sunset, Lena turned to me with tears welling in her eyes. Mark, thank you, she whispered, her voice catching. For being so patient, for understanding everything, for just loving us. Lena, you don't ever need to thank me, I told her, kissing her forehead. I love you, and this is our life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. As I held her close, I knew that the road ahead might still have its terrible challenges. But now, we would face everything together. A family bound by unbreakable love, resilience, and the solid promise of a brighter future. That night, after the utter humiliation at the steakhouse, I couldn't sleep a wink. I lay in bed, staring blankly at the ceiling, replaying Emma's savage words over and over. You're not my real father. You're just the guy who pays. And Lena standing there, telling me maybe I should just go have children of my own. Something essential inside me shattered. By morning, I had made a firm decision. I drove straight to the bank and transferred the college fund, the entire $47,000 I had carefully built up over 8 years, back into my retirement account. 10 minutes at the teller's desk, and the future I thought I was giving her was completely gone. Then, I immediately called a lawyer. When I got home that evening, Lena and Emma were waiting for me in the kitchen. Lena's face was blotchy and red from crying. Emma's arms were crossed, a nasty mix of defiance and pure fear on her young face. You can't be serious, Lena said, her voice shaking, before I even managed to set down my keys. You're ending our entire marriage over a teenager's tantrum. I looked her straight in the eye, my voice dangerously level. No, I'm ending it because last night I finally, fully understood what I am to you both. A wallet. Nothing more. Emma's voice sliced in, sharp as a knife. You can't just walk away because I got into a great school. I calmly held up the paper from the bank showing the closed account. I'm walking away because you made it crystal clear I'm not your father. So, I took back the money I saved for my daughter's education. Since I'm apparently not your father, that money belongs to me. Lena's face went completely pale. You took her college fund? No, I said quietly, the word heavy with finality. I took back my money. If her real father wants to pay for Princeton, let him. Where is he, by the way? Still sending those pathetic $50 guilt checks twice a year. Silence filled the kitchen. For once, Emma had absolutely no comeback. I packed my bags while they whispered frantically in the kitchen about loans, scholarships, maybe even calling the biological father. I heard Emma crying upstairs. Real tears this time, but it was far, far too late. When I walked out the door, Lena desperately reached for my arm. Please don't do this. We need you. No, I said, pulling my arm away. You need my bank account. There's a difference, and I'm finally smart enough to see it clearly. That was the last night I ever slept in that house. The years that followed were quiet, peaceful in ways I hadn't known were possible. Without the constant drama, my business absolutely thrived. I hired more workers, added more trucks, expanded into commercial contracts. By the third year, we were booked 6 months out, and I was turning down jobs. For the first time in forever, I had time and energy just for myself. I went on fishing trips with friends, took long, soul-cleansing rides on my motorcycle along the coast, started woodworking projects in my shop, and even joined a bowling league on Thursday nights. I rediscovered who I was. Not a provider, not a wallet, but a man who actually deserved respect and peace. Meanwhile, through neighbors and old friends, I heard fragments of their story. Lena remarried quickly. That lasted a measly 18 months. The man realized soon enough exactly what he had signed up for. They moved 3 times in 5 years, each apartment smaller and shabbier than the last. Emma never went to Princeton. She tried community college for a year, but without any steady money coming in, she quickly dropped out. She bounced between dead-end part-time jobs. The car I bought her was repossessed when they couldn't keep up with the payments. I didn't feel bitter. By then, I only felt profound relief. 7 years after the divorce, I was grilling dinner happily in my backyard when the doorbell rang. Standing there were Lena and Emma. Lena looked older, completely worn down, her eyes missing the spark she once had. Emma, now 23, looked exhausted, her natural youth dimmed completely by stress. "Can we come in?" Lena asked meekly. I didn't move an inch. "We can talk right here." Emma's pride was the first thing to crumble. "We're in trouble," she blurted out. "Serious trouble." They explained everything. The car was gone. They had lost their apartment. They were currently staying with Lena's sister, but only had a week left. Lena had lost her job when the restaurant shut down. Emma was waitressing, barely making enough money for food. I listened to the whole sorry tale quietly. Finally, I asked, "Where is your biological father in all this?" Silence stretched out, heavy and awkward, between us. Eventually, Lena admitted, "He sends money at Christmas, if he remembers." "So, the man who would have understood Princeton isn't around for the real world, is he?" I said. Emma flinched as if I had physically struck her. Then came the inevitable plea. "We know we messed up badly," Lena said, her voice desperate. "But we're family. We need your help, just until we get back on our feet. You could co-sign a lease, maybe help with a down payment on a car." I shook my head slowly, cutting her off. "Do you know what I hear?" The exact same thing I heard for years, that I exist only to pay for things. "You're not here because you miss me. You're here because you need my wallet again." "Please," Emma said softly, her eyes filling with tears. But I had learned my terrible, painful lesson. You made it absolutely clear I wasn't your father. So now I'm not. Go to your real father if you need help. And with that, I closed the door firmly. I stood there for a long, quiet moment, staring at the wood, listening to their muffled, fading voices as they walked down the sidewalk. For the first time in years, I felt completely, truly free. Did Mark, by cutting off the funds and leaving, teach Emma a necessary, tough lesson about value and respect, or did he simply abandon his commitment and act out of spite? Thanks for watching, and don't to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share your thoughts about this story in the comments.